Commander Zix-4471 stood at the center of the Galactic Military Academy's combat arena. His forearms crossed in confident superiority. The Krelian warrior's exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights, each chitinous plate bearing the scars of 1,000 victories. For 3 standard galactic years, no cadet had lasted more than 30 seconds against him in single combat. Today would be no different, or so he believed. Next challenger, Zix-4471's translator crackled, his mandibles clicking with amusement as he surveyed the mixed crowd of alien cadets. Representatives from 47 different species watched from the tiered seating, their various appendages, tentacles, and sensory organs focused on the arena floor. A murmur rippled through the crowd as a figure stepped forward from the human section. The being was unremarkable by galactic standards. Bipedal, bilateral symmetry, no natural armor, no claws, no venomous spines. Just pink flesh stretched over calcium-based bones, protected by nothing more than the standard-issue training uniform. "State your designation," Zix-4471 commanded, barely glancing at what he assumed would be another quick victory. "Cadet Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force," the human replied, her voice steady despite facing a creature nearly twice her size. The Krelian's compound eyes finally focused on her properly. Humans were new to the galactic community. Their planet had only been contacted 18 months ago. Their species was considered weak by most standards. No natural weapons, fragile bone structure, primitive technology. They had been accepted into the academy more out of political courtesy than any expectation of military contribution. "Very well, human Chen," Zix-4471 said, the translator adding a dismissive tone. "Standard combat rules apply. First to achieve incapacitation or submission wins. Are you certain you wish to proceed?" Sarah's response was to step into the marked combat circle and raise her hands in what her species called a fighting stance. Several alien cadets made sounds that their translators interpreted as laughter. "Begin," announced the automated referee system. Zix-4471 didn't rush. He never did with obvious weaklings. Instead, he advanced slowly, savoring the fear he expected to see in the human's primitive optical organs. But Sarah's brown eyes held something unexpected, not fear but calculation. The Krelian struck first as tradition demanded of the superior combatant. His primary right arm lashed out in a blow that could shatter Vegan crystal. It should have ended the match instantly. Sarah wasn't there. She had moved with fluid precision, her smaller frame slipping beneath his strike while her own fist connected with the joint where his leg met his torso. The impact should have been negligible. Human muscle density was pathetic compared to most species. But Zix-4471 stumbled. The arena fell silent except for the hum of the gravity generators. "Impossible," whispered Cadet Morgax from the tentacled collective. "Humans have no enhanced musculature." Zix-4471 regained his footing, mandibles now chattering with irritation rather than amusement. He launched into a proper attack, a 4-limbed combination that had defeated the reigning champions of 6 different species. Sarah moved like liquid shadow. She ducked, weaved, and struck with surgical precision. Each of her attacks targeted specific points that individually did nothing, but collectively they began to affect the Krelian's coordination. His left leg became sluggish. His secondary arm started to shake. "What are you doing?" Zix-4471 demanded, though his translator was beginning to slur as Sarah's strikes affected his nervous system. "Pressure points," Sarah replied conversationally, avoiding another swing. "Your species has a highly centralized nervous system. Very efficient, but it creates vulnerabilities." She struck again, this time at the base of his neck. "Every species we've encountered so far has them." "We?" Zix-4471 tried to grab her with all 4 arms simultaneously, but his coordination was deteriorating rapidly. "Humans are hunters, Commander," Sarah said, her voice taking on an almost educational tone as she continued her systematic dismantling of the galaxy's finest combat instructor. "We spent millions of years learning to kill things bigger, stronger, and better armed than ourselves. We study our prey." Another precise strike and Zix-4471's primary weapons arm went completely numb. "We've had 18 months to study everyone here," Sarah continued, now circling the increasingly helpless Krelian like the predator she was. "Your nervous systems, your pressure points, your movement patterns. We've watched every available recording of Academy combat training." She paused directly in front of him. close enough that he could have crushed her skull with his remaining functional hand, if his optical processing centers hadn't been compromised by her earlier strikes. The thing about being the weak species, Sarah said softly, is that nobody expects you to be smart about it. With surgical precision, she delivered a final strike to a cluster of nerve endings just behind his auditory organs. 64471 collapsed like a toppled monument, conscious but completely paralyzed. Winner, Cadet Sarah Chen, announced the referee system after a long pause. The arena erupted in chaos. Cadets from dozens of species chattered, roared, whistled, and vibrated in amazement. Sarah simply walked to where 64471 lay and knelt beside him. The paralysis is temporary, she assured him quietly. Full function will return in approximately 6 hours, though you might want to consider updating your combat protocols. As medical drones arrived to assist the fallen champion, Sarah stood and looked up at the shocked faces in the arena seating. For the first time since the match began, she smiled. And somehow that expression was more terrifying than any weapon the other species possessed. From that day forward, the Academy's combat training protocols were completely revised, and while the name Sarah Chen became legendary throughout the galaxy, an interesting phenomenon occurred. Somehow, nobody could quite remember the name of the previous undefeated champion. After all, who remembers the names of prey?